This video is brought to you by Ground News. After what feels like the longest leadership election in recorded history, Kemi Badenoch has been elected as the leader of the Conservatives. After defeating her final opponent, Robert Jenrick, with 53,806 votes to Jenrick's 41,388, she became the fourth woman to lead the Tories, and the first black person to lead a major UK party. So in this video, we're going to take a look at how she got here, how she managed to beat Jenrick in the final round, and who she's appointed to the shadow cabinet in the immediate aftermath of the victory. Before we get into it, we have a long read all about Badenoch and what you can expect from her in our magazine Too Long. Find out more and pick up a copy by clicking the link in the description. It was unsurprising that, following the worst electoral defeat in history, on the 5th of July, Conservative leader Rishi Sunak announced that he would be stepping down. In essence, firing the starting pistol on the third Tory leadership election in just 2 years. While some argue for a short leadership election, on the basis that it would likely reduce further factional infighting, the Backbench 1922 committee decided that a longer leadership election was preferable. They reasoned that this would force MPs and party members to really think through their decisions, and ensure that whoever they ended up choosing would have the support of the whole party, not just one faction within it. Effectively, they didn't want a repeat of Liz Truss. In essence, this meant that up until the start of October, MPs would whittle candidates down to 2. Then the wider membership would have a month to vote between these 2, with the winner being announced on the 2nd of November. Anyway, initially 6 candidates put themselves forward: Priti Patel, Mel Stride, Tom Tugendhat, James Cleverly, Robert Jenrick and Kemi Badenoch. Prior to the Conservative Party conference at the end of September, Tory MPs voted amongst themselves to whittle the candidate list down to 4. The first 2 to go were Patel and Stride, allowing the other 4 to progress and make their pitch to the membership at the conference. Now, while Jenrick was ahead in the previous round of MP voting, his speech at the conference was perceived as pretty mediocre, which helped to build up an already established image of him as just another generic Tory. Cleverly's, however, was well received and really helped him to build momentum as a serious, credible candidate. Despite this, though, Jenrick clung on and Tugendhat was the next to go. Now, throughout all of this, Kemi Badenoch remained broadly in the middle of the pack. She was known as someone who could court the right of the party, and as such, someone who, if they made it to the final rank-and-file member vote, would likely decimate whoever went through with her. As such, some of the MPs that backed Cleverly in the previous rounds lent Jenrick their votes in order to try and knock Badenoch out, and give him the chance to win the membership vote. This backfired massively though, and Cleverly was duly knocked out. This meant that the final 2 candidates to go through were Kemi Badenoch and Robert Jenrick. From the beginning, it was clear that Badenoch would likely win though. After all, her unapologetic right-wing ideological stance has gone down well with the members. While Jenrick tried to court the right of the party by committing himself to holding a referendum on membership of the European Court of Human Rights if he became Prime Minister, to many, his conversion to right-wing politics simply came too late. Jenrick had previously been considered a relatively centrist candidate. Anna Soubry, a former Tory MP who helped Jenrick with his re-election campaign, explains that he was a full-fat subscriber to David Cameron in 2014, and he trims his sails to suit whichever political wind is blowing in the Conservative Party. This contrasted significantly with Badenoch. She's been characterised as anti-woke throughout her career. As Equalities Minister, she opposed plans by the Financial Conduct Authority to allow trans employees to self-identify in the workplace, opposed gender-neutral toilets in public buildings, and abstained on a vote to extend same-sex marriage to Northern Ireland. She also reminded schools that the government opposed primary and secondary schools teaching white privilege, and made clear that she opposed identity politics, likening it to coercive control. This year, in the leadership election, she also claimed that not all cultures are valid when it comes to immigration, and that between 5 and 10% of civil servants should be in prison. Now, the thing is here that these views haven't exactly made her popular with the public. Only 12% of people hold a positive view on her, whereas 45% say that they hold an unfavourable view. This makes her less popular than Keir Starmer, Nigel Farage, Rishi Sunak, and Ed Davey. Even among 2024 Conservative voters, her net favourability is only positive 6%. And while that's certainly more of a problem for her now that she's leader, in the leadership election, this was basically irrelevant. The Conservative membership is far more right-leaning than even those who voted Conservative, and as such, she was immensely popular. The last poll conducted by Conservative Home suggested that 55% of the membership wanted Badenoch to be the next leader of the Tory party, versus just 31% who wanted Jenrick. It's understandable then why Badenoch won this election by around 12,000 votes. So with Badenoch now in place as the Conservative leader, let's move on and take a look at who she could appoint to her cabinet. But it's worth noting here that Badenoch doesn't actually have as much choice as she would perhaps like. As things stand, there are 121 Conservative MPs, and it takes 100 MPs to shadow all government roles. Perhaps this, then, is why she suggested that she could offer all 5 of her competitors in the leadership race a job in her shadow cabinet. Now, due to the constraints of getting this video made, we only have the shadow cabinet appointments made prior to midday on Monday. So any appointments made between then and the release of this video will be mentioned in a pinned comment down below. Anyway, caveats aside, it seems that Badenoch wasted no time upon her appointment to the top job, and as such, on Sunday appointed Dame Rebecca Harris as the party's new chief whip. Now, Harris hasn't made that much of a name for herself since being elected in 2010. One of the big advantages of this, though, is that she's attracted little controversy, which will likely help her in this new role. She also has experience in the whip's office, having served in the whip's office since 2018. The next 2 appointments were made on Monday morning. These were Nigel Huddleston and Lord Dominic Johnson as co-chairman of the party. Huddleston has previously worked under Badenoch when she was business secretary, and Johnson worked under her when she was trade secretary. Now, as I say, further cabinet appointments were made throughout the day and will be mentioned in the pinned comment. And all of this was being done in the anticipation of the first shadow cabinet meeting on Tuesday morning. So, with the cabinet sorted, the main job for Badenoch now will be trying to regain the party's standing in the polls, something that will be tricky, especially against the fresh and united Reform UK party, and a very powerful new Labour government. And despite only being in position for a few days, Badenoch has already caused some scandal, with her interview on Laura Kuenssberg's show creating a bunch of headlines, including 29 about her Partygate comments. 56% of the reporting here came from those on the left, while 25% came from the right. But if you compare the headlines, you'll start to see some interesting framing emerge. On the left, you have the Daily Record saying Kemi Badenoch slammed after claiming Partygate row was overblown, while the Times frames it as being less contentious and focuses more on her appreciation for Boris Johnson. They're reporting on the same thing, but from their tone and framing, you really wouldn't think they are. Now, all of this analysis is possible thanks to our sponsor, Ground News, a website and app developed by a former NASA engineer on a mission to give readers an easy, data-driven, objective way to read the news. They pull in stories from all over the world and organize them by story, with each story coming with a quick visual breakdown of the political bias, factuality, and ownership of the source's reporting, all backed by ratings from 3 independent news monitoring organizations. One of my favorite features is their blind spot feed, which shows you stories underreported by one side of the political spectrum or the other. For example, if you lean left, you might have missed this story about Starmer facing pressure to remove MP Dawn Butler over a white supremacy tweet. Ground News is such an incredibly useful platform that captures information you just can't get anywhere else. It's especially useful when you're looking at news stories from around the world, as I'm sure our very global audience often does. If you're not familiar with the media market, it's hard to know who you should trust. So Ground's guidance can prove invaluable whether you're a European trying to unpack the US election or an American trying to understand the Bulgarian one. Okay, the latter does sound less likely. Best of all, Ground are currently offering our viewers a 50% discount on their Vantage plan, which includes unlimited access to their election pages, blind spot feed, and many other features that empower you as a news consumer. This is their biggest discount yet, so go to ground.news/TLDR, scan the QR code on screen, or use the link in the video's description to subscribe today.